Hello YouTube world, my name is Nicholas Montez, and you're watching my channel, The Teenage Movie Critic, and today we're going to be doing a ranking video. So this past weekend, Superman came out in theaters, directed by James Gunn, and the DCU has officially started. But as much as I'm excited for James Gunn's DCU, it kind of got me thinking back on the previous DCEU. And I was kind of thinking about certain movies and stuff like that, and I'm like, yeah, this franchise was better, but it was also not better. So I'm just going to go ahead and give you my updated thoughts on this universe and exactly where I would rank them. So here is my ranking of all 17 DCEU projects. So that's right, I'm also including Peacemaker as well. So let's go ahead and get started ranking all 17 of these projects. So coming from me at number 17, and it's going to be a little tricky for me to remember some of these because I don't have Peacemaker on Letterboxd. I'm looking for my Letterboxd list. At number 17, my least favorite DCU project is Shazam 2: Fury of the Gods. Now, I think that I was trying to think, like, for my list, what were the movies, because I feel like for my list that I had before, it was just the movies that were normally just hated. And then I kind of started to think about it. Those movies, I don't really hate as much as everybody else does. But then I started to think, what's a MCU movie that I honestly just kept hating on? No, wait, did I just say MCU? I'm so sorry. I meant a DCEU movie. What's that one DCEU movie that I constantly hate on? And that's Shazam 2. Now keep in mind, I was very excited for Shazam 2. I really enjoyed the first film, and it's going to be much higher up on this list. But while the score is pretty great in this film, and there are a few good moments with the family, I just think that this film, what it lacked was a good story. They create a bunch of new villains in here that I don't really find interesting, and throughout this whole thing, like, we get some monsters in here, but then they recruit unicorns, and you think that actually have a good payoff, and then the final battle, like, the kids start lose their powers, and they don't even find a way to get them back, and then Shazam basically dies. Wonder Woman comes back and revives him back to life, and then the ending is kind of like, it's wholesome. We did it, yay! But, like, what happens now? Are they going to go back to doing what they were doing? Like, it was so confusing and weird. And then once again, they had a post-credit scene where it didn't even lead anywhere. So for me, this was just such a terrible film that I honestly, it gets worse every single time I think about it. Number 16, I have Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And this is a film that I started looking back on the Snyderverse and the Henry Cavill version of Superman. And everybody is thinking, you know, they're doing like the Spider-Man route, where Spider-Man didn't necessarily start out being the hero that everybody knows he is, because there's so many other heroes. It took him 3 movies and a few Avengers movies to get him to where he needs to be. And I guess you could say that's what they did for Superman, where it took a Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Justice League, or Zack Snyder's Justice League, to basically make him the Superman that we know and love. But at the same time, like, the difference between him and Spider-Man is Spider-Man actually started out wholeheartedly. It still had some really good action. It had good characters. The actors all had chemistry. With Man of Steel, they didn't start out like that. The entire world, like the action and stuff, it all felt bleak. When you go to Metropolis and stuff, it feels so bleak. And with this movie, and kind of doing that story of how would the world respond to a metahuman or an alien arriving on Earth? They do kind of have an interesting story about that. But I just feel like they took it a little too seriously. I do kind of like the way they fit Batman into the story, and the fact that Batman was there during the attack. But then at the same time, I just think they try to do so much with Lex Luthor, with Wonder Woman, with the setup for Justice League, and then you try to do the Doomsday storyline, and I don't really think it works all that well. And so, yeah, that's kind of frustrating. The best thing about this movie that I'll say is the fight scene with Batman in the warehouse. It's probably one of the best live-action Batman fight scenes I've ever seen. But besides that, I can't really rank this movie very high. At number 15, I have Man of Steel. So yeah, this is actually one of the films that kind of degraded for me, mainly because you're doing the Superman story, and especially now that I've finally seen Christopher Reeve's Superman, and I know what this character is all about, this does not feel like Superman. This is a guy who came from an alien planet, and he's basically like fighting these Kryptonians and causing 9/11 events. And when you go to Metropolis, there's no color to it. Everything feels bleak and sad and depressing. Lois and Clark have no chemistry with one another. And while it presents cool action scenes and a great score from Hans Zimmer, the movie just doesn't do anything to service it. And yeah, the flight scene with Superman was awesome. But I think they were handling the coolness of Superman rather than making a film where Superman can be approachable, not because he looks cool, but because he actually looks like a nice guy that we could actually go to. If I was living in Metropolis with this Superman, I would not want to go to him because I think he would probably want to... He looks like he wants to kill me. So, that's my thoughts on Man of Steel. For now. Number 14, I have Justice League 2017. I don't hate this movie like everyone else does. I can admit that, the goofy tone that Joss Whedon brought in, that he did on the Avengers movies, was a little not very good. And I think, especially after watching the Snyder Cut film, I can understand why it doesn't work, because it undercuts a lot of the characters' arcs. Like, the best stuff in Snyder's Cut was Cyborg and Flash. Flash and Cyborg are easily the weakest parts of this movie. Superman, while he gets some awesome moments, and he gets some awesome moments in the Snyder Cut, he's very goofy in this movie. And granted, Superman has always kind of been goofy in most films, but he's very goofy in this one. And even in the way they handle him coming back, just feels very weird. So, I don't know. It was kind of hard to like this movie, but I still kind of had some fun with it. Number 13, I have Suicide Squad 2016. Of course, there is a better version of this film that is directed by James Gunn. But, to be fair, I don't think this movie is as bad as everybody puts it to be. I actually kind of enjoy it. Of course, the cast, I think some of the characters in here are actually quite likable, like Will Smith's Deadshot, Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. Those characters are fun. I liked Killer Croc. Rick Flag was pretty cool. I liked the soundtrack. I liked some of the action sequences. Obviously, I hate Jared Leto's Joker. I don't like Enchantress. And yes, the way they handled some of the plot was a little bit weird. And in some of the ways they handled it, I just thought it was a very weird take on it. Number 12, I have Black Adam. Obviously, this was the most overhyped DC movie of all time. Where, The Rock was talking about the hierarchy of power in the DC universe is about to change. No, it did not. This was a standard comic book movie from DC, and that's not really a bad thing, but at the same time, it does make you wish you could have wanted something a little bit better. Me personally, I like the Justice Society of America in here. I thought they were fun. All the action scenes with Black Adam in them were, of course, very cool. The film did kind of feel like a cool comparison to Shazam, but it felt different enough for it to compare, so I kind of liked it. It's not the best movie or anything, but it's good. At number 11, I have The Flash. A lot of people this was also a film that was praised and being raged on for a lot, where it was, at CinemaCon in 2023, it was known to be one of the best films of all time for DC. And then it was also known to be one of the worst films for DC when it came out. And when it came out, some people were actually loving it, some people actually disliked it. And then there's people that just kind of thought it was pretty good. For me, I'm in that category that I thought the film was just good. And don't get me wrong, I mean, yeah, the CGI, it's pretty bad. I think what makes this film pretty good is I like that it's doing the Flashpoint story, but doing the DCEU version of that. Where, you know, with all the troubled actors of Henry Cavill and stuff, and they can't really bring back certain actors to come back here, and Cyborg, how do you do this movie? You bring in Michael Keaton's Batman back, which I thought was really fun. And we get another solid action scene and another solid great Batman fight scenes in this film. You get Supergirl in here. You get 2 Flashes. You get General Zod back. There's a bit of fun in this movie. But at the same time, of course, I think Ezra Miller works really good as the Flash in here. And he has a really good story there. But the problem with the movie is it doesn't feel as special because it's kind of limiting. It doesn't have that many characters to really collide, or where it was doing something different. Not saying I just wanted to see Flashpoint Paradox, you know, adapted just on screen, but I kind of would have preferred that if they did the universe better. But it also made me think this universe actually had the potential to be something really good. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on The Flash. Bringing us into the top 10, I have Wonder Woman 1984. Now, a lot of you hate on this movie for whatever reason. I haven't seen it since it came out, since I saw it on Max back in 2021. And I'll be honest, the movie it still holds up for me. It's once again, it's a comic book movie that like kind of shines in it taking place in the 80s. I like Pedro Pascal as Maxwell Lord. I like the villain Barbara Cheetah character. I liked that they brought Chris Pine back and stuff like that. That was pretty cool. I just think that the entire plot of the movie, with all the conflicts that it's going up against, it's all happening because of a monkey's paw. And so if you take the monkey's paw away, none of these characters are actually evil. None of these arcs are actually a thing because the monkey paw is creating that. And you could say that from the beginning with Barbara, she probably would have been a villain from the beginning if she was able to get powers the other way. But it's like when you have a source and that's your way of setting up a threat or a conflict, I think that's a little weird to me. But as for what they gave us, I still thought it was a pretty entertaining experience. But I still thought it was a little weird in the way they did it. So that's kind of my thought on it. And that, like, you couldn't develop a better way to do these villains, that they're just being mind controlled. But yeah, that's my thoughts. At number 9, I have the original Wonder Woman. Now, this is where I think the DC movies started to get a little bit better for me. This was one of the first films in the franchise where everybody kind of started to like them. And they were like, yeah, this film is actually pretty good. It's actually pretty solid. To where, you know, they, of course, were finally able to bring, you know, this character to the big screen and make a film out of her. And I thought they did a pretty solid job in doing it. Gal Gadot was great as the character. It has a lot of cool action scenes. Her and Chris Pine's chemistry was really good. And then the score from Hans Zimmer is also great. But also, they made a superhero film where it doesn't take place. It takes place in another war, which is World War I. What you think? I mean, I don't know how many wars we have left of what other superhero films we could do. But we have Captain America with World War II. We have Magneto and Wolverine in the Holocaust. We have, I guess you could say, Isaiah Bradley's Captain America for the Cold War. And then you have Wonder Woman for World War I. That's pretty cool. The only reason why it doesn't quite work well as for me is because some of the villains, they're a little bit lackluster and they're kind of forgettable. But besides that, I think that this is a pretty potent and like outstanding movie. Number 8, I have Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Obviously, a lot of people are going to trash on this movie for whatever reason, it being campy and basically being like the first movie. I didn't mind a lot of this stuff. I mean, I liked the fact that Aquaman and Orm are now working together and they kind of worked with the relationship together. And I thought that was like the best strong point of this movie. Once again, it's a James Wan movie, so the action's really, really good. The comedy still works. And I liked the way they kind of incorporated a few of the characters from the Kingdom of Atlantis. I thought that was kind of cool. Black Manta's fight scenes were all awesome. But also, it kind of has that Wonder Woman 1984 problem where all of this stuff, you're bringing back just the same cast from the first movie. And Black Manta except Black Manta's more powerful than ever. And he's using a trident that is making him out of control. That's a little weird if I'm not going to lie. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. Because it's like, it doesn't feel like an actual threat. Because technically he was already evil from the very beginning. But I wondered, did the trident make him more powerful? Or did he just become more powerful that way? I don't know. Number 7, I have the original Aquaman. And once again, this one's a little bit special for me because this was actually like the first DC movie that I actually saw in theaters. For a long time, most of the films that I went to go see in theaters were like Marvel or Disney or Pixar. And for the first time, I actually went to go see a DC movie in theaters, and it was a very outstanding experience. It felt almost like I was just seeing a Marvel movie, to where it was just fun, and it was action-packed, and it was funny. It was exciting to go to this world of Atlantis. It was, of course, it's a James Wan movie, so the action's going to be really, really cool. Jason Momoa works really well as this character, and it's just, overall, it's just a fun movie. And I love that it's a film about just being entertainment. And what more could you get from an Aquaman film like that? So that's basically what I really enjoyed about the first Aquaman. Number 6, I have the original Shazam movie. And Shazam was my second DC film that I actually went to go see with my mom when it first came out. And honestly, this was just such a pleasant surprise for me. And I'm honestly so glad that it did really good, because it is really a solid DC film. Zachary Levi works great as this character. And basically, it's basically Big, but as a superhero movie. And I really enjoy that. And he's funny. I also like the amount of heart that this movie does. And all that stuff. And as you have Billy and his arc of getting a family, that really works for me. So, yeah, Shazam is just an overall solid film. I also like the villain, though he could have been a little bit better when he's not using demons to kill his dad. Otherwise, I think it makes for a pretty satisfying film. Bringing us into the top 5, we have The Suicide Squad, directed by James Gunn, and James Gunn's first entry into the DC universe. Me personally, this was a pleasant surprise from him, as, you know, I liked what James Gunn did with the first 2 Guardians films, but to be honest, the Guardians movies were nothing crazy. But before, you know, this movie, the Guardians movies were nothing crazy for me, and James Gunn was nothing crazy for me, and so then he was then put on to direct the Suicide Squad film for DC. And I could tell that there was a lot of stuff that was different from the 2016 film. And I could also tell that this was a different type of style, considering that the only James Gunn movies I've ever watched were the Guardians films. I never saw Super, I never saw Slither until this year, and I never saw movie 43 until Guardians 3 came out. So this was a very different type of style of filmmaking for James Gunn for me. And after watching it, I have to say, this is one of the best directed movies that he's ever done. To where he's able to make a film that is both entertaining, action-packed, and funny. But at the same time, it's not just doing that. It's making a interesting story to where this movie is inspired by The Dirty Dozen, where that movie's all about soldiers coming in to fight Nazis, and that's what this film is. It's hiring bad guys to fight worse guys, and I love that. But at the same time, James Gunn was able to take his strengths on what he did with the Guardians films and introduce us to characters that we never really knew about and make us fall in love with them. So by the end of this film, you love King Shark, you love Polka Dot Man, you love Bloodsport, you hate Peacemaker until you get into his show. And you also happen to really like Rick Flag in here as well. You continue to like Harley Quinn in this film. And there's just a lot of heart. They developed a lot of the characters really well. And of course, also the soundtrack is also phenomenal in the film. It's a DC film that it's just one of those comic movies that feel fresh and unique. And honestly, it's like I was not a fan of it before because the movie, and I still kind of stand on this, that the movie just kind of goes a little bit over the top. I like what James Gunn did, that because now he had the full immunity to basically go for it with everything, with action and comedy and humor and jokes and all this and all that. There's a lot that he did really well, but I also think there's a lot of stuff to where I'm like, okay, I think there's a time where you need to maybe cut back. And I think that's also the reason why this was kind of the movie that, unfortunately, it didn't hook me on James Gunn until I saw Guardians 3, because Guardians 3, he was able to do that stuff, but in a PG setting, and in some ways, I thought he found a way to make it work really well, but make one of my favorite movies of all time with Guardians 3. This one just kind of went a little bit overboard, but I think, it was 2 years since after he did the Suicide Squad, so I think he found a way to make it perfection with Guardians 3, so that's my thoughts on the Suicide Squad. Sorry for rambling there, but it means a lot to me. Number 4, I have Zack Snyder's Justice League. So I had no idea what this film was really about, because, I saw the 2017 Justice League and I'm like, oh, this is cool. I don't really know exactly what more you need to change from this movie, because if it's going to be the same story, because I'm watching the trailer and I'm like, that just looks the same as from what I saw. So I'm not exactly sure what you want to change here. And then I saw it was like 4 hours long, and I'm like, oh, this is 4 hours long? What's going to be different about this one than the 2017 version? And obviously, it's a very long movie, but what makes this movie work so well is, while it is the same story, there's a few of the scenes from the original movie. There's a couple of added scenes and a couple of the same scenes, but those same scenes are altered in a way that are done better. Whether it's a character arc being set up, delivered on, and then being paid off. Or having these scenes of tension where we're trying to stop Steppenwolf and we have some successors, but we lose in the end. That stuff works. They developed the Justice League in such a great way. Cyborg and Flash have some great moments in the film. And then even then, they found a way to make Superman heroic in the film, to where him getting his black suit. And you actually, and like for the first time since Man of Steel, you actually felt the heroism for his character, for his portrayal. And honestly, it's a film that kind of gets better with every rewatch, and it makes you think, could Zack Snyder actually have done better when he made the rest of the Snyderverse? And could we have actually gotten to see all the DC heroes team up to stop, you know, Darkseid and stuff like that. I think that would have been really cool, but unfortunately the Snyder Cut got canceled, so yeah. But overall, this was a great movie, and I'm glad we got it. At number 3, we have Birds of Prey, Harley Quinn, or Birds of Prey, The Emancipation of Harley Quinn. The Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, or just Birds of Prey. This movie kind of got hated on when it first came out, but honestly, I'm like, and I watched this movie in preparation for Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I'm like, the entire time I was thinking this, I was like, this is really well directed. But what's also just insanely great about this film is I love all the action. The action is, like, I love the DCEU movies' action sequences, but this one probably has some of the best action I've ever seen in a DC movie, to where, you know, Margot Robbie, I love that we actually got a film centered all around her, and, you know, basically, because she's been a character this whole time that's basically been, you know, under the shade of Joker, but now she's out of the Joker's shadow, so what does a film like that look like? And it kind of takes inspiration from Deadpool, but also kind of like with that like that obsessive narrating, but also like it kind of feels a little bit like Guy Ritchie movies with the way the style is being told and the way the story is told. But at the same time, like, all the action is great. Even the way certain characters are is really great. And some of the comedy in here works really well. So I think overall, this is just one of my favorite comic book movies that I've seen in a while. That I've honestly seen. And also, the final battle in this film, I love that it's so street level. And I'm like, I think this and Daredevil are probably the best examples of, you know, superhero films that, like, you can be practical and still be exciting. Same thing with Hawkeye. You have a bunch of trick arrows with CGI, but it works really well. At number 2 is going to be Peacemaker. Yeah, I really love Peacemaker, and I think it's better than the Suicide Squad. Mainly because it just feels a little bit better focused, and I think that Peacemaker was the first step in the direction of what James Gunn has always been wanting to do with comic book characters and all that stuff, to where he can do great action. To where we saw that a tease with that with the Suicide Squad. This film kind of goes for more of it. There's a few wackiness in it, but at the same time, like, there's action that is great, a soundtrack that's really good, but also what makes this show work really, really well are the character interactions. Every single character in this show is so great. They're all funny. They're all embracive. I love Vigilante as this character that's almost like Deadpool in a way. I love all these conversations about these characters that kind of talk about just random things. And it kind of makes you think about, like, that's kind of like us in a way, that we're kind of commenting on all this stuff in our day-to-day society. Also, the dance sequence at the beginning was honestly hilarious. So for me, Peacemaker is just one of those projects that just works. And I'm so excited for Season 2 next month. Cannot wait. But easily coming in first place, my favorite DCEU project is going to be Blue Beetle. I had some pretty low expectations going into this movie because I'm like, I liked the trailers, but to be honest, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to see it or not. Considering that I didn't really know if my friends wanted to go see it. And then I went to go see it with my friends, and I was like, oh, well, that was actually a really great movie. And I don't know if it was like because it felt normal but for some reason, it's like it took that normalcy that we see in modern comic book movies, and they found a way to make it fresh and different enough to where it was able to work just a little bit. If anything, this is my thunderbolts for the DCEU, to where it felt like something different enough, but with a familiar thing on it where, you know, you're getting a Hispanic superhero, and you get George Lopez and him trying to like fit into this world while carrying a beetle thing on his back. It works really well. And then even when it gets into the action and stuff, I think it works really well to where it's like, you think a battle between this guy with a beetle suit and a robot suit is going to be lame as shit. But it actually turns into something really awesome as like Jaime is creating all these weapons with his suit. But it also kind of makes it emotional in a way, and something that I was not expecting from this movie. Like, I was expecting, oh man, we're getting another CGI fight with two characters in robot suits. But it actually is so awesome. And then even then, we have Blue Beetle fighting some soldiers, but he's not trying to kill them, and they find a unique way to do that. And then even then, the movie has a great amount of heart, but also a great amount of emotionalness to it. And I'm like, this movie is just one of the best DC movies. I'm like, and the fact that it did so low at the box office, I'm like, why didn't people go see this? This movie was so good. So, yeah, Blue Beetle, absolutely worth your time. If you like superhero movies, I think that's the one for you. And yeah, I love Blue Beetle. I love Blue Beetle. So that's it for my review, re-ranking of the DCEU. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. If you like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.